Good morning, everyone. It is January the 12th, Wednesday, and we're going to go ahead and continue our lecture on space. Now, we left off with converging parallels, and what I was going to show you when the video cut off yesterday is basically just a visual of what that's going to look like. So here I have a sheet of paper that basically, looks like the rectangle you see on the left. But then when I pull one edge back, you can see the top and the bottom lines become orthogonal, also known as diagonal. So this is an example of converging parallels. So at some point, basically this way, those lines would converge in the distance. So this line, if you carried it on out, and this line, if you carried on out, in the distance, those two lines are going to converge. So this is another technique for creating the illusion of space on a flat two-dimensional surface, like a sheet of paper. Okay, number 9 is linear perspective. And linear perspective is basically a technique that we will explore quite extensively. This perspective is a system for accurately representing sizes and distances of known object in a unified visual space. Accurately, okay? Based on optical perception, it incorporates the artist and the viewer's judgment about concepts of scale, proportion, placement, and so on by applying spatial indicators such as size, position, and converging parallels. So, there are 3 types of linear perspective: 1 point, 2 point, and 3 point. And we will take a look at all 3 of these in our studies. Now, there's a fascinating history behind who invented linear perspective. It's generally believed that the Florentine artist Filippo Brunelleschi invented linear perspective during the early Renaissance period in Florence, Italy. He lived from 1377 to 1446, and as far as we know, none of the ancient Greeks had this knowledge. If they did, we haven't found it in ancient texts or, on any artifacts that have been found from that era. And basically, Brunelleschi passed this knowledge on to a lot of his contemporaries in the early Renaissance period, one including Masaccio. And Masaccio was one of the first painters to use this technique in a mural in a church. So we're going to go ahead and look at the next image. This is called Trinity with the Virgin. So on the left, you see we have St. John, and donors are included. So this fresco was painted in 1427 in a church in Florence. It's called the Santa Maria Novella, and that's the name of the church. Now, it's pretty big piece. It's 21 feet by 10 inches by 10 feet 5 inches. So it's very tall. It's 21 feet tall and it's 10 feet wide. All right. And the technique of painting with a fresco, you use tempera paint, which is a water-based paint, and you apply the paint into wet plaster before it's dried. So you have to put wet plaster on the walls. It's a lime plaster, and then you paint on it, and the paint absorbs into the plaster, and the paint actually becomes part of the wall. It takes over 100 years for it to completely dry, and the colors change over that time period. Fresco is a fascinating technique to study. Now, you just kind of have to visualize when you walk into the church, you know, you go back and there's a little area where this painting is painted on the wall. And it looked so realistic at the time it was painted because no one had used linear perspective and their paintings didn't look that representational. People thought the mural was actually real. They thought it was a real space, a chapel that you could walk into, okay? So this was profound at the time period. So you can see there is a curved vault, a vaulted ceiling, an arched vaulted ceiling, and you get the feeling that there's real space here. So here we have Jesus hanging on a cross. There's God the Father behind him. And then here we have the Virgin Mary and John the Baptist standing on each side. And then at the bottom, we see the two donors who actually paid to have the mural created. They paid Masaccio to paint the mural in the church. And so they get to be part of the artwork. Now, over on the right, we see an overlay with... here's the horizon line. You have to have a horizon line when you create a linear perspective drawing or painting. And then you have to have converging parallel lines, or excuse me, converging diagonals. So here you can actually see these lines that constitute the decorative ceiling work in this little chapel area. They all go back to this point on the horizon line. So this is called one-point linear perspective because only one point is on the horizon line. And then you see the triangular overlay. What that represents is Renaissance artists often use a triangular or pyramidal composition structure in their paintings. Okay, so here we have God the Father, and then your eye follows this line from the head of God down the arm to the hand of Jesus down to the top of the head of this donor, and then you've got a line straight across and then back up. Okay, that was a very common technique that Renaissance artists used in creating compositional structure. Here is a diagram which explains one-point linear perspective a little bit more in detail. So you have a horizon line, and just remember the horizon is always at eye level, okay? And then you've got a vanishing point. Here's our vanishing point right here. Now we've got some boxes that are drawn below the horizon line and above the horizon line. And there's actually a box that's on the horizon line, okay? So again, if a box is on the horizon line, it's at eye level, you'll only see the front of the box. You can't see the top or the bottom or the sides. Again, let me grab the box. So here is a tissue box, and it takes me a second because everything's in reverse. So if the box is at eye level, you cannot see the sides and you cannot see the top or the bottom. But if it's above the horizon line, you'll see the top and the bottom of the box. And if it's or above eye level, or if it's below the horizon line or below eye level, you'll see the front of the box and the top of the box. Okay, that's how that works. So the horizon line is always at eye level. Okay. Here's an initial sketch and a reworked drawing for a one-point linear perspective image. So over on the left, we have a drawing of a street. And we have some buildings on each side. So the horizon line is going to be right here where the sky touches the ground. And then the vanishing point is right here because all of the converging lines, the diagonal lines, the orthogonal lines are all coming back to this vanishing point. Now, the edges of the building that are going to be vertical and straight horizontals are going to be straight up and down and straight sideways. So over here on the right, basically, this is the front side of the building. Just imagine seeing the front side of that box. And then if it's slightly to the right, you'll see the front of the box and the side of the box, just like we saw in the previous image. So depending on where you place the box is going to determine what angles you see. And architects use linear perspective in their drawings. So these are architectural drawings, and anyone who's trying to render images of buildings, houses, any type of 90-degree forms, linear perspective is a perfect technique to use. Now, over to the right, you see the images further developed. So shadows are included, street lamps are included. So the tops of the street lamps go back to the vanishing point, and the tops of the trees also go back to the vanishing point, as well as the sides of the building, the tops and the bottoms of windows. Okay, now if a building is facing you, that's all going to be a 90-degree angle. But where you see the edge or the side of the building, that's all going to be going back to the vanishing point. And we'll be doing some of these drawings, obviously. Here is a sketch of a kitchen. Again, 1-point linear perspective is used. You can see your vanishing point right here. So your horizon line will be this line right here. And so all the tops and the bottoms of the cabinets overhead, the counters below, they all go back to the vanishing point. Anything that's faced right in front of you is going to be a 90-degree angle, okay? All right. Now here's an example of a painting using 1-point linear perspective, and it's fun to look at these paintings from the early Renaissance and even later and trying to figure out, okay, where's the horizon line, where's the vanishing point? So this is a piece by Antonio Canaletto, and it's called the Campo De Rialto. And in Italy, if you've ever been to Italy, their neighborhoods are set up with squares. So there will be a square, which is this open plaza area, and then there will be architecture around the square, okay? And that's what we see here. So if we look at this orthogonal line or this diagonal line at the top of the building over on the left, and we follow it down, it's going to come basically to this area. And then if we follow the line from the top of the building on the left and come straight down, it comes to that same area. And then if we follow these lines from the actual plaza decorations on the ground, they come back to this area. So the vanishing point is going to be right in here, so the horizon line will be right through here, okay? Basically around the tops of these people's heads. And again, you can see smaller images of people in the background, larger images of people, talking about scale, another technique that we learned earlier to create the illusion of space on a flat two-dimensional surface, like a painting or in a drawing.